Okay. Feel like I say that every single stream. We're back. Feel like I say that every stream too. It's like we're living the same day every day, but somehow the same day that we're living every day is so incredibly different from, you know, the everyday a year ago. And I wanted to discuss this a bit tonight because of just some of the just conversations that I've seen lately because of things going on the other side of the world, in Afghanistan, here, Canada, I don't even know where else. I mean, everywhere. Australia. It seems like the entire world is going insane. And academia is going insane. Politics is going insane. Dating life is going insane. Gender dynamics are going insane. Science is going insane. I mean, whether or not you want to say science can even go insane, but still, I will say it appears like the scientific world is going insane, which is the academic world essentially. But the academic world in our current narrative encompasses more than what we would classify as sciences. But I don't know how relevant those definitions are. But there's so much going on that I'm trying to plan a trip, and it seems impossible to plan a simple trip within my own country. And this is really frustrating for a lot of people, and I realize that, and I understand it, and I'm right there with you. But I think that we are focusing our attention largely, and this is true of the mainstream, and it's always going to be true of the mainstream. So if you want to know usually what not to do, usually look at the mainstream, but that's probably not the best way to deduce what is right, what is the right thing to do. But I can say that the mainstream is usually wrong. But that don't define yourself as anti. Sometimes the mainstream is right, but it's really getting a lot of people to feel meaninglessness, and we've talked about this before. There is a crisis of meaning, there's a drought of meaning, and nobody realizes where they can find meaning, when in reality you can make meaning, and there is infinite meaning. There's literally infinite meaning. There's not just infinite meaning in the universe. There's infinite amount of meaning to be made whenever you want to make it. You just have to know that you can make it, and you have to know how to make it. But that's not the main thing that I want to discuss tonight, even though it is related. I want to discuss how best to insulate yourselves from the chaos. Okay? And I want to explain kind of like what I'm doing to insulate myself from the chaos. Not just to tell you what to do. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm going to basically tell you what I am doing. And, you can follow along with it. You can, learn from it if I do something wrong. But I will share that. But, I've tried to share a lot of these like processes that I have gone through over the past like few years. And I think it's very important. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, as like people tend to not share their failures until years later, when they are ready to share it and they built themselves back, and everybody can then look at them and be like, oh, look at so and so, they overcame such tragedy, but in reality you never got to see their struggle. I think it's warping our perspective of life, and what it really means to be living a normal life that is actually hasn't succumbed to like the crazy madness that's going around in the world. It's just normal, and it's just normal struggles. But I think that people should share when they lose their jobs. I think people should share when they get divorced. I think people should share when they have health issues. I think that people should share when they have You know, personal struggles. I think people should share when they have, um, you know, I don't know, all kinds of things that just go wrong or that in your life that you have to deal with as and overcome. And I think that it would make it easier, actually, because you'd have a support system. But we tend to hide when things go wrong, and then you know, once we fix it, we come out and we're like, pulled myself up by my bootstraps. It's like, to some degree, yes, but not entirely. And but it's not helpful to people who need to learn by watching examples, and this is particularly men. Women are much better at following directions. And I was speaking with a friend of mine today, who's one of the few friends that I have that has like children that are not newborns, and I don't even have very many friends that have newborns, but I have a few. But I have one friend that has children that are, quite a bit older than the rest of ours, and she just escaped the madness that everybody else was dealing with years ago. She got married, they had kids, they have a family, life, and this is probably the main and most important way in which you go about insulating yourself from the madness. Is you have to, in a world where governance structures are falling apart all around you, and sense-making structures are falling apart all around you, and support structures are falling apart all around you, it is essential to form structures that you can lean on. So I'm going to be honest about, just the hardship in my life that I experienced earlier this year. It was quite a bit earlier, but obviously people here know I ended up having to leave the company that I was working for. And I had actually dealt with this and financially prepared for it. And that's good. But, and, I don't know, whatever people see. Here's the thing is people don't want to share because we're afraid of being judged, but you have to be braver than that. So I'm going to, but so I had saved up a lot of money, kind of prepared for what occurred, and then I was going to get another job, and then whatever was left over I was going to put towards my wedding. And some of the just things that had unfolded had made, I guess, finding consistent income difficult for a period of time. And there I was like not too worried about it. There's a solid I had saved up for quite a bit, but there was a little bit of time where I was like, okay, this is actually going on a bit longer because the market and the world is unstable. That's the lesson here. And but I had expected that if this consulting that I was working on didn't end up paying the bills, there would be an opportunity for assistance from the government, and never showed. It didn't show because the government failed here. I was unaware of this, but apparently for a year there was no benefits being paid to anybody who was on what's it called? Unemployment. I couldn't figure out what the term was, but that is not something that you ever expect to have happen from institution that prints money, essentially, and especially coming from California. Everything ended up working out. Got a job, did consulting work, figured out a way to deal with things, but this safety structure that I was like, okay, well, if all else fails, and by the way, like, let me just say this, I'm not going to get into the details of it because you don't need to know every detail of my life, but I will say, it was down to the wire at a certain point, and I literally was like, I don't know what I'm going to do next month for rent. And like, let me tell you, God is amazing. And like, when you think it's like that's the end, it's like, what are the odds, that something comes through? And probably 100%. So that is one thing that I do know that we can all rely on is God, but sometimes what God has planned for us doesn't look like what we would want, or doesn't look like success in the moment. And I do recognize that, but I do also trust God that he knows what's best, but it still can suck for us in the moment. And, but California and their benefit structure, I don't know what's going on with it now. I mean, I have a job and I haven't looked into like what's happening with it, but I did look it up, and I just read like people were requesting 9 months, for benefits to be paid out, or unemployment to be paid out. They couldn't reach anyone. I tried calling, couldn't reach anyone for too long, I will say, to the point where it was making me a bit nervous. But like I said, I had prepared, which thank God I even like had that. But I also had Paulina, and Paulina has a job, and was able to also be able to on her own sustain us. And I also was bringing in some, but not enough to pay the rent on my own. And this was the benefit structure that saved me. Was living with my now wife and having multiple streams of income between the two of us, and that redundancy was what saved me. It wasn't government, and it wasn't even getting a job. It was, I mean, those things, they can help, and they do help, and they have helped me in the past, but that structure, that was the structure that I had complete control over, actually, not complete, but a lot of more control over than you do over, your state's unemployment department, is whether or not I was with essentially a spouse. We weren't married yet, but we were engaged and we were living together, and not saying that's the best way to do things, but when you have a spouse and you have multiple streams of income, you can support each other. And it's not just about income, though. When one of you is experiencing depression, the other one can, hold you up, and then it switches, and you can hold the other one up when they're experiencing some, negative, I don't know, aspects of their life, or just going through a more difficult time. And this is probably the number one way to insulate yourself from the craziness. And I do predict that it's going to get much, much crazier. We're not going to be allowed certain places because of restrictions that are being put on around the world that I'm not going to talk about because I'm already being limited on YouTube. But a lot of people around me have been like, how are we going to get food? And I have thought about it too. I mean, there are ways, though, that you have to insulate yourself. Now, this involves becoming a self-supportive system to some degree. No one is an island, but you can form a buffer zone in all these areas of your life where when things go down in the system that everyone's relying on, the beast system that just creates like NPC autonomous, consumers, you want to have something to fall back on, and where you're not panicking. And so one of the ways that you could do this is also by having lots of spare water in your house. And I learned that during the crazy shortages that we had last year. And I saw everybody just scrambling and buying water, and I had just taken a jug of water that was drinking water, and as soon as we were done with it, I filled it up with tap water and put it in the garage. I did this for like months leading up to even the lockdown. And when things went south, and I mean, they literally, like, there was no waters left at the stores around here, I was not worried at all. I mean, yeah, you can say, well, I have a faucet. You don't know what's going to happen. What if the faucet goes down? You need some water. But the other thing that is a plan of mine is to get chickens. And I'm looking for a place to live in the next 2 years where hopefully Paulina and I can buy a house. And we're going to get some chickens. And the reason why is because, obviously, if you have chickens and you're getting constant eggs and more chickens that are being bred by the chickens that you have, and then you can have more eggs, you basically have an unlimited food source. And you can grow that food source too. It's not just like, you have some boxes stashed in the basement that, has 3 months supply of MREs. It's like, no, you have like, unlimited supply of chicken and eggs. That's pretty great. That's way better than MREs or whatever, storable food that, you can buy in a box in those prepper kits. And so this is another way that you can buffer yourself. Another way that you can buffer yourself is to have the tools necessary to accomplish the tasks that you need to accomplish. And it starts with a pocket knife that you can use to open boxes, or a Leatherman with pliers and a screwdriver and a little knife and whatever else is on there, little saws and things like that. And it goes on to all kinds of other tools. You can accumulate tools over the years. Never throw out tools. I don't even throw out screws and nails, guys. I literally keep screws and nails that have been used. And I use them all the time. And these, I haven't bought, I probably spent less than $500 on tools in my life. And like, that is saying something, because I build things. I'm not somebody who doesn't build things. Like, I have lots of tools. I have a lot more tools than $500 would buy you over time. I mean, I probably have way less than $500 worth of tools that I've spent on. But I have found just abandoned hammers, like literally outside, that are rusted over from like the 60s. My best hammer is like, I don't even know how old, 60 years old or something like that. And it's all rusted. I found it outside. It's better than any other plastic, lightweight, whatever hammer that you could buy at Lowe's today. And when they say like they don't make them like they used to, they definitely don't make them like they used to. They don't make a lot of things like they used to. But having tools is very important. Someone said to me that I had said that, we're not delaying children after marriage, okay? And I will say that we're not avoiding kids. It will happen when it happens, and you guys will find out about it, at that time. But we're not delaying kids after marriage. I don't think that people should, unless there's like health reasons. And people told me, though, they were like, well, what about your finances? What about, if you can't afford it? Anyone that says what if you can't afford it? Those people make more money and have more resources available to them than so many people who have no money and still end up having multiple children that they raise to adulthood, and that could be healthy adults. And, that doesn't mean that they always are, but that's not because they didn't have access to nutrients in the United States. It's because they weren't taught, they weren't eating properly or whatever. But I would also say that one of those tools that's important to have is a firearm. And I have a rifle, I have handguns, a shotgun, and I had said to this person who was like, "Well, what if you can't afford to feed it, your kid?" I was like, "I will hunt deer in the hills to feed my family." Like that. What I don't understand why there is this like mentality of like we can't do it. I mean, I do, but I also don't. It's not warranted. It's not necessary, but it is. I understand why it's there. It's because men need to see examples. And I wish I could show you some firearms here, but I can't because it's live and they don't allow you to hold a firearm while it's live. But one day maybe I'll release a stream that's not live about it. But recommend an AR-15. It's the best rifle ever made. And it's definitely another buffer. It's like, someone said to me once in the comments pretty recently on Instagram, they were like, I said something about the police department of some city being corrupt. And they were like, well, you're going to be let's see who's the first person you call when someone breaks into your house. It's like, I sleep with a rifle next to the bed. You think I'm worried about somebody breaking into my house and therefore I will call the cops when they break into my house? I have a Belgian Malinois, and that is not my first line of defense, okay? Like, I will protect the Belgian Malinois. The Belgian Malinois does not protect me. There's no reason why you can't be like that if you're not already. And it's not something that a lot of women like when they aren't exposed to it. But, I can tell you from experience, my wife went from not even wanting to see a firearm to now sleeping in a bed next to a rifle. So it's like, you have to show your intentions though, and then women will trust you. But you have to show your intentions. You can't be like, wanting to hook up and without, responsibilities and without commitment, and then expect women to trust you with, things like that. So, but that's another way in which you can buffer your life. You don't have to rely on the cops. You don't have to rely on the supermarkets. You don't have to rely on welfare systems. You don't have to rely on all of these things that we normally rely on. If you live near your parents, then you and your family, your siblings or whatever, you don't have to rely on babysitters and child time, or what is it, daycare, child time. I think that was the name of a daycare center when I was a little kid. And but daycare centers, and I'm planning on homeschooling my children. I will not subject them to this craziness. A lot of people are like, I'm going to homeschool my kids because they're not teaching them, they're confusing them on gender, and they're not teaching them about Christopher Columbus in schools. Let me tell you something. There's so much worse things going on in schools than that. And maybe you didn't realize it until recently, but I did. I did not do well in school for the most part because it was just useless and I knew it. And I've taught everything that I know well, I have taught myself outside of school. Everything. There is not a single exception to that rule. Like, not one. Which is, I don't know. I would imagine that's probably true of most people, to be honest. I don't think most people end up learning very much in school about anything. And, but being capable of creating buffer zones for yourself and being self-sufficient is not something that's taught in the education system, because it's basically teaching you to just parrot whatever narratives they are telling you. And we would need to drastically change our school system to make it useful again, and you'd probably have to segregate it by gender. And because, at least in part, because it doesn't work very well for men and women past a certain age and to a certain age. So I would say it's like between first grade and like 12th grade, or between first grade and grad school even. It's not helpful for men and women to be in the same classroom. I'm not saying you restrict anyone's education. I think anybody should be able to learn anything. But I also think that your education can be anything. Like, go watch Sean Carroll's Biggest Ideas in the Universe before you go and you take a physics class. You know, I don't even like Sean Carroll very much, and I think he's wrong on a lot of physics things, but I will tell you, watching his content will give you a much better physics education than any physicist that you could take in school. Almost any. Maybe you have a special, physics professor, but it's unlikely. So, but there's so much chaos in the world, and there's almost no reason until it does get to your door, and it can get to your door. And I'm not going to say it doesn't get to your door. It absolutely can get to your door. Tyranny can get to your door. It's getting to people's doors every day. And that's unfortunate. But there's so many other things that people worry about that are not tyranny. Okay? Like not having enough money to pay your rent. Or not having enough money to buy food. Or not having, a romantic partner to lean on that's committed, or not, having help with your childcare. Like, these things are overcomable without, any kind of super drastic measures, to be honest. I mean, I don't think getting chickens is a drastic measure, but I guess if you live in an apartment, which I do, then a lot of people would think it's a drastic measure. If you've never wanted chickens, then it's a drastic measure, I guess. But like, we have to reach this point where people start taking personal responsibility, because personal responsibility is the key to insulating yourself from chaos. You have to make order in your life, and that takes responsibility. Like, it is your responsibility to make order in your life, and it takes you embracing that responsibility. And if you don't, though, then you are going to experience such chaos, you'll never be able to grow. Never. You won't be able to do much of anything but complain about the news all day long. And that's honestly seems to be the goal of the system, of the beast, if you want to call it that, the corporate, military, industrial, media, economic complex that is, academic complex that is this, giant chicken with its head cut off that just kind of like wants to scoop us all up and bring us along for this, the nonsense ride. And you have to go along with it if you're not going to take up personal responsibility. But if you do you arm yourself and you train yourself and you learn new skills and you get married, and I know I harp on it and it does piss people off, I do not care anymore. Someone told me today, a friend of mine, they were like, I'm getting engaged. And I was like, I'm so happy. Like, I'm so proud of this person. I'm so proud of everybody that tells me that they're getting married. It's really, words cannot even describe it. And I realize I'm obnoxious on the issue, but it is the most important issue it's the most important social, political, and economic issue in the world. It is. There's nothing else that compares at all. And, I mean, you might not realize that yet, but I have. That's why I'm so annoying about this issue. But a friend of mine told me, and I didn't even know he was, still seeing this girl. He was like, yeah, getting married in like the next month or so. I'm getting engaged. And that is awesome. There's nothing manlier in the world than embracing the responsibility of protecting and providing for a woman who's going to, take care of your family. Like, for life. There's literally nothing more manly than that in the entire world. There's no amount of weights that you can lift, or cigars that you can smoke, or scotch that you can drink that will ever come close to scratching the surface of that act. I've said before, like the manliest act I ever did was like kneel and like propose. But it was interesting because in my wedding, we had a traditional Nigerian wedding, and as the first ceremony, and in that ceremony, the man goes and hides, and then he hides like somewhere with his groomsmen, not like hides, but just goes somewhere where it's not obvious where they are, and where the bride would have to go look for him. And I like went away, down like this like hill area, and Paulina comes up to me, and in this ceremony, she's carrying a cup of palm wine, and your wife-to-be goes before her husband-to-be, and when she finds him, and kneels before him like you kneel when you're making a proposal of marriage, and offers him this like cup of palm wine. And if he takes it and drinks it all, then you have accepted this woman as your wife, and like it that's basically means like the marriage has that's like you may now kiss the bride, basically. It's like that. It's that kind of moment. It's the end of this process that you go through for hours. And I will say, like, the only other moment that is like manlier than when you're kneeling to propose to a woman is also when like a woman is kneeling and proposing to you, essentially. But it's not even like a proposal. It's a little different. It's like an offering more so than a proposal, which is a little different. It sounds very similar, and obviously I get that, but it's just got a different vibe because it's coming from the feminine perspective. And but I did find it interesting that like both of those moments were like two of the most like masculine moments of my life, and they're literally opposites of each other, which is weird. But this chaos that is coming and that is here and that has been here is not something that you have to constantly focus on all the time. There are some things that you have to focus on: keeping your family healthy, keeping yourself healthy, whatever you believe that entails. And making sure that you have resources, making sure that you can you have people around you that you can lean on. That's not the government. That's not your job. Your corporate job is not your family, and they will toss you aside as soon as you aren't useful anymore to them. And that's fine. They don't have to keep you. But you have to recognize that that's what it is. It's not a relationship of looking out for each other. It is a relationship that is totally one-sided by both parties. Yes, there are like instances of kindness and stuff because you're dealing with people, but ultimately you're not dealing with people at the end of the day. You're dealing with a structure that's not sentient, which is, company. And a company is not family, which is a sentient being. A family feels, okay? That's the difference. What's the difference between a family and a company? Company does not feel bad for you. There are people in a company that do feel bad for you if you get laid off. But the company does not feel bad. But if you got laid off, your family feels bad. And that's because a family is a sentient being. It's just a sentient being maneuvering in time. So via lineage. So it looks like multiplicity, but it's manifesting as multiplicity in this, but it's still actually a singular lineage. And it's important though to surround yourself with people who feel for you. Those are the people that will want to actually be there. And it's better to surround yourself with people who are as permanent as possible. First and foremost is a spouse. And I mean a spouse above your immediate family. Because, as I've said before, after I got married, I was like in the road and we were taking photos, and I was like watching out for Paulina to make sure that, it was safe with cars and everything. And she was like, I'm fine, I'm okay. And I was like, I know, but it's like the most precious thing in the world to me right here now. And it happened overnight. And even though we had lived together for years, we've dated for years, I mean, I don't like to say I love that person because I think it's a bad phrase for society to hear. But I genuinely, love is an action, that's why. But I genuinely do love that girl, like, and have for years. I mean that in an actionary way. Like, I have helped her with so many things. Build things, fix things, all kinds of things. And that is what love is. And then now she's my wife. She is, the weirdest thing is this realization that now she is above my immediate family in importance. In the hierarchy of who's important in my life, she is now above my parents. Like, that's wild. And it happens in one day. And, but that is how you insulate yourself, is through basically, as I said yesterday, constraining yourself. If you want freedom from the system, you have to constrain yourself to commitments of responsibility, whether that's teaching your own kids, raising your own food, growing your own food, committing to one, romantic partner. Like, these are all constraints. You're constraining yourself when you embrace responsibility, but you're also freeing yourself, like we discussed yesterday. And, I do realize this stream wasn't exactly what I had planned on talking about tonight, but some things came out that I want to include in the topic that I was going to discuss, so I'm postponing it till stream very soon. But this was a topic that I did want to discuss because a friend of mine was like, I'm getting married. I was like, dude, you have no idea how important this is. Like, politics aside and the societal implications on voting and things like that aside, it's so important. And let me explain this too, because this is, somebody was talking to me about, where do you want to move when everything is going crazy in the world? Because where I was living last year was like not chill. It was very sketch. Okay, it was getting increasingly sketch. There was like homeless cities like near me, and like it's just getting very sketch. And I haven't said that word in forever, but it's the perfect word to describe where I was living. And it didn't start that way. It was really nice, and it was kind of country. Like, everybody has horses around me, and then it went straight to sketch, from like country to sketch, and they're not the same thing. And to like urban sketch, like homeless people, and it happened in a matter of months. And one of the things that I realized is it's not enough to leave and flee the cities. Okay? You can't just flee the cities. You should get out of the city. I'm not telling you not to. I think that you should. But you have to go to a community. Just like saying, I'm getting out of here, I'm going to have no neighbors, no one's going to be around me. Let me tell you, it can get sketch real quick. And what you want to move to an area where you are primarily surrounded by families and married people. I lived when I first moved to California, I lived in this house. Next door to me was my landlord, this woman and her kids, and the people next door to me on the other side was a family, and then next door to them was a family, and we were all kind of like in this little gated thing. It wasn't gated when I first showed up, but it got kind of sketchy, and they installed the gate. I don't know how much it helped, but it was there. And there was one night where this guy was caught doing heroin, basically right on the ledge of the wall to my neighbor's yard. He was just like some homeless guy just shooting up heroin. And there's kids that play in that yard. I mean, he was like tossing needles. Like this is not an environment where you want kids to be, regardless of even whether or not the person is going to do anything violent or anything. And this guy, who was my neighbor, is outside, and he is like telling this guy off a bit. He's like, get out of here. You need to leave. And I saw this, went outside with my roommate, and then our other neighbor, who also has kids, came outside, and we all basically were like, you need to get the fuck out of here, because this is not going to be acceptable at all. And like, we didn't even know what we were going to do about it. We weren't even necessarily going to call the cops, because the cops don't do anything about it. But he was like, I'm just going to come back. And like, we intimidated out of this guy. We didn't hurt him or anything like that, but like, we made it clear, like, there were children here. This is families here. And this is like a united front. And you can't just come in and like shit up on a little like safe space or safer space. And I didn't have a family, but I was the only one that didn't have kids, and that was in this like little like neighborhood. But everybody who did have kids and me went out there, and we protected our land, essentially. But it was because the community was united. And this is a way that you also insulate yourself from chaos. It's very important that we start forming communities, and they already exist if you go to certain like suburb communities, and it's like that's the family community and stuff like that. But even then, it's not enough. There's too much chaos in people's lives leading to their living situations that some people can afford to live in that type of environment and they don't have a family, and some people can't live in that type of environment and they do have a family. And it's the family that should be the deciding factor on whether or not your area is like stable. Okay. And if you're surrounded by families, what it does is now the incentive is towards peace and growth and safety and, predictability and stability and all of these things that you want to be around when you're trying to avoid chaos, because they are intrinsically the opposite of chaos. They are people who embrace responsibility, which is not caring for yourself, it's caring for others. Caring for yourself is not the embracing of responsibility. That's just called being not catatonic. Okay? I've said this before as like that, that Big Daddy quote where the little kid is like trying to, say that he's like, grown, and he's like, I wipe my own ass. And, Adam Sandler's like, I know. And the thing is that Adam Sandler's character is this character that starts off as someone who does live on his, he's making ends meet, essentially. How? Who knows? But, he doesn't live with his parents. He lives with roommates. Somehow he's paying that rent. He has no responsibilities outside himself, though, and he's painted as a child in this movie. Even though he's wiping his own ass. And he handles his own stuff. But he doesn't handle anyone else's stuff. And the story isn't about the kid. It's about, obviously, Adam Sandler's growing up, not the kid growing up. And Adam Sandler goes from not someone who doesn't take care of himself to someone who does. But he goes from someone who takes care of himself to someone who takes care of himself and someone else. And that is this transformation that is like unveiled in this movie as, the journey to adulthood. And it's really profound. I mean, it's one of the greatest movies ever. I love that movie. But it's also very deep in the lessons that it can, teach. And a lot of Adam Sandler, Adam Sandler movies have this like weird thing where they're like sometimes oddly deep, but also like if you didn't watch it multiple times or grow up with it, it's like you can't even understand its depth. It's like Mr. Deeds or something like that. It just seems like almost a stupid movie if you watched it today and you had never seen it and or grown up with it. A lot of Adam Sandler movies are like that. But there's deep, meaning about, growing up in a lot of these movies, but especially Big Daddy. And it's just one of those movies that I think it's probably got more lessons in it, or the most profound lessons of any movie that I can think of right now, which is just that an adult takes care of others. And the thing is, though, is like I said, that's how you insulate yourself. It is how you insulate yourself. How do you insulate yourself for food? Grow food. Get chickens. Like right now I'm in an apartment. We don't grow anything other than like some herbs and stuff like that. But like, I grow geckos and snakes and stuff over there. That's true, but I don't eat those. But I do understand what it's like to care for others. And as soon as we get a house, we're going to get chickens. And we're not moving to a place that doesn't allow chickens. Like, it's just a requirement. And the thing is, though, about a lot of this stuff is you have to put your foot down and be like, if you want to insulate yourself from the chaos, you have to put your foot down when it comes to the chaos trying to loop you into more chaos. So a friend of mine said this, and I don't mean to pick on him, but I will. And I have basically put my foot down and said I will only work remotely unless it's on a project that's not permanent. I will never work a 9-to-5 job in the office ever again in my life. I don't want to be away from my spouse in these chaotic times, and I don't want to be away from my future children, and I want the ability to homeschool my kids and live where I need to. And like, these are not things that are possible when you work in an office environment always. And obviously this had a lot to do with a lot of the changes that have happened in my life. And I basically put my foot down. And this friend of mine who didn't, but, wanted to, was like, I would give my left hand to work remotely. And I was like, no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't, actually. Like, would you really give your left hand? Because right now you go to work every day. You could put your foot down and be like, I'm not budging until I get a remote job. And not everybody can have a remote job, and I get that. And you can't do every job that you have to do in your life remotely, and I understand that too. Like I said, there's going to be jobs that I have to do that are not remote, and I welcome those. But every single day, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 in the office, not for any specific reason other than to be in the office, I have put my foot down. I will never go back to that environment. I think it's an anti-family environment. And it is an environment that intrinsically loops you in to the system, because then you have to rely on the schools. You have to rely on food that comes from elsewhere, because you can't care for your own food. You can't raise your own chickens. You don't get home till 7 p.m. When are you going to raise chickens? And so it does take, like, basically just like putting your foot down in the sand and not knowing what comes next. But what does come next is you insulating yourself from the chaos. And you do that through embracing responsibility. And this is a journey for me as much as it is for everyone. And so I'm not claiming to be like, oh, over here I embrace responsibility. Like, I definitely have taken steps in my life over the past couple years, especially, to do this. And it's funny. Once someone said to me that I wasn't. A couple times people told me that I wasn't, because I had refused to, like, work in an office environment 9 to 5 for no reason at all, every single day of the week. And 9 to 5 in LA is really like 7 to 7. And I just refused. And I was criticized by someone important at that time in my life, and who had said basically like, Tyler, you speak about like embracing responsibility and manhood, and I really think that you need to like take a look in the mirror. And the reason why is because I didn't want to work in the office. And it's not that I didn't want to work. Just didn't want to work in an office environment all the time. I will go in for projects. I'll go in for team meetings. I'll go in for all kinds of things. I'm not going to sit there away from my family and leave them vulnerable where, their only quote unquote defense is calling the cops after something bad happens, or, sending my kid away to school to not be raised by his own parents. That's crazy. But it was just so ironic, and I couldn't really get into it with them at the time because of like just the constraints of everything that was happening. But they had basically told me like, oh, well, if you're not going to go into work, then you're just not a man. And you're not embracing your responsibilities. And, people have to go to work. Yeah, people have to go to work if they have to go to work. They have to do work. That's true. And you do work where the work can be done. And this is definitely the future. And I actually said that to that person, like the very beginning of lockdown. I was like, this is going to lead to remote working being like a revolution for most people. And they were like, no, it won't. Yes, it will. And people will say things like, well, one of the things that they've realized at these companies is when people go remote, there's a bit of a decline in productivity. By the way, I don't think that that's intrinsic. I've seen it also go the opposite. I know when lockdown first went into effect, PragerU was more productive. That doesn't mean it always would be that way. It's just saying in that moment it was. Because I could get up, start working at 7, and then end at 7 and still have tons of energy to be with my family. And instead of, getting up at 6, preparing for the traffic, driving across town, going into the office, staying there till 6, avoiding the traffic, leaving, getting home at 7, and being exhausted from basically almost 3 hours in a car, potentially. No thanks. But that is a huge waste of time. I mean, literally. The amount of time that you have to waste preparing and then, debriefing essentially, what would it be called? Like, not relaxing, but like when you get home and you need to decompress. Yeah, decompressing. And also traveling. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And there's also time that's lost every time you switch those various tasks. It's crazy how people still think that would be more productive. But it's just that we need really to find very engaging ways of working with each other. And that really is dependent upon a team and how good they are at using certain tools that they have available to them. Something I'm working on right now at my job is just like figuring out the best way to do this, keep everybody like engaged, but also not be annoying. And, but where you're not just like not sure where people are on a task, you kind of know. And this is an emergent inevitability of working from home. So, and it's very freeing to be able to, move if you need to and not lose your job, or feed the chickens on your lunch break, or, watch your kid when your spouse has a meeting. There's lots of very important aspects to this structure that allow you to insulate yourself from the beast system. and being at just the disposal of this, you know, non-feeling thing. It's not a feeling thing. Don't let non-feeling things dictate your life. Ever. The only things that should ever dictate anything about our lives, really, I mean, as far as like what we prioritize, should be sentient beings that feel for us and that we can feel for. You don't feel bad for Jack in the Box when it like has to lay off a bunch of people. You feel bad for the people that got laid off because Jack in the Box isn't a thinking, feeling being. It's just a, you know, I don't know. Like it's just a constructor. Like constructor theory would basically, the perfect way of, I guess you would say the perfect example of a constructor as defined in constructor theory is company. You don't want constructors to be dictating of your priorities. So, like I said, I'm kind of like trying to think of all these various different ways to approach this, and there's so many. And it depends on your individual situation. Get solar panels. Like, I carry this pack with me everywhere I go. Okay. This pack, actually, I should get into this. This little pack is a Maxpedition pack, the brand, and in it there is literally everything you can think of. And I carry this in my backpack that I carry with me wherever I go if it's more than like 5 minutes away. It has all kinds of little tools, lights, more tools, lighters, sharpeners, lens cleaners. There's all kinds of like medication in here, like there's like Benadryl and aspirin, and I haven't looked in so long. It's all expired, but it will work. You know, Pepto-Bismol. There's like everything in there that you could need. There's waterproof bags in there. There's space blankets in there. I mean, when I say there's so much in there, guys, like there's wire here. This is actually probably a much more fascinating aspect of this stream. In here, there's batteries. This is water purification tablets. This won't hold you over forever. Vitamin C. But there's some change here, just some coins. There's like safety pins and fishing line, and there's a charger, and there's a compass, and what else is there in here? There's a tiny little crowbar that you might need. Who knows? There's Sharpie markers. There's a giant Leatherman. There's a pen that's also a self-defense pen. There's a energy bar. There's that's called 550 paracord. There's right here on the side. This is a SOG knife. It's just like a utility knife, and I can tell you this is probably one of the best tools I have. And the fact that like men don't have a knife like this isn't a weapon. This is a tool. I chop wood with this. Like literally chop firewood with this. It's crazy. You know, I took this out once and someone said to me, they were like, you could cut someone's head off with that. I was like, that's the first place your mind goes? Like the first place my mind goes is like, oh, look, it's like got a rasp on the edge so that you can like do woodwork. But people's minds are just like so dependent upon the beast system that anything that signifies, you know, dependency and could be used as a weapon, which is anything, but if it looks obvious, like it obviously can be, it's immediately thought of as offensive, which is crazy. In here, there's also solar panels. I have solar panels in my backpack. That's like a solar charger. I have pop-up cups and like, I mean, there's so much in there. I can't even go through it all. One day I will go through it all because, you know, I'll do like a prepping for survival like episode, and I'll go through all my like systems. And it takes years to develop these. And you have to like go online and watch YouTube videos of other people that did it. And it started for me with just like junk, rope and stuff that I had accumulated over the years of moving and all kinds of camping and stuff like that. Over time, I got more into it, decided to like make it more intentional, and now it's like this pack will save the day. These are runners for rock climbing that I've used for rock climbing, but I got new ones, and these ones, they're still perfectly good, but like I replaced the ones that I was rock climbing with, and I put those on that pack. They can hold 22 kilonewtons of they can withstand 22 kilonewtons of force. These little carabiners are not like little water bottle carabiners. They can withstand 22 kilonewtons of force. They're rock climbing carabiners. You could literally jump off a cliff and that thing will save you. This is well, that looks cool. This is a ultraviolet light. Check for bed bugs when you go and stay at a hotel. Like, that's something that you should definitely do, by the way. Every time before you get into the bed, check it. Like, before you put your stuff down and unpack, like, check the bed. Trust me, you will not regret it. The worst that happens is you realize that you need to leave fast, and you dodge a bullet of, like, getting bed bugs. But it's just important to become kind of like self-reliant, but it's not really self-reliant. That's about survival, short term. That's not going to keep me alive forever. I mean, those tools will last, but there's not like food there, and there's like some change, there's not like enough to pay my rent for a year. Like, there's things that you need beyond a prepper bag or go bag, as they call it. You need community, and you need to be in a community that is focused on embracing responsibilities into a nuclear family structure so that it's self-regulating. You don't have to rely on teachers and politicians and law enforcement to tell you what to do when you have a family structure that has natural incentives towards goodness, and it's incentivizing you to tell each other what to do instead of you having to rely on some arbitrary system from the top down that doesn't care about you. And that's the thing that I've been saying, is like, you want the systems that you rely on to be sentient beings. Like, fundamentally, your local police department does not care if you live or die. They really don't. A police officer who responds to a scene where somebody's injured, sure. But the department does not care. The hospital doesn't care. Your politicians don't care. They pretend to care. They don't. Your company doesn't care. It pretends to care. It doesn't. It does not give you health care because it cares about your health. It gives you health care because they're trying to be, competitive. And it's not even to keep you healthy. That's not why they give you health insurance. It's to be competitive with other positions. It is good for you to be healthy, but that's not what health insurance really is like usually for. It's for like when things are abnormal, for the most part. And so, like, you have to rely on structures that actually care about you, or they will abandon you. And you can't always be, the person pushing. Sometimes you have to be pulled. And that's true of everyone. And you're only going to be pulled by structures that are sentient beings. If you're not doing well, you're experiencing depression, and you're not being productive, your family will drag you as long as they can. Your work will fire you. That's the difference. One of them is a structure that insulates you from the beast, and the other one is the beast. Okay? It's very important to realize, if you're going to insulate yourself, realize that you are insulated and cared for and supported by sentient beings. When you raise chickens to eat, you're supported by sentient beings. When you take care of crops that you grow yourself, vegetables and things like that, fruit, you're caring for sentient beings, and they are supporting you. This is a mutual relationship. It's not this, eat or be eaten, world. It's eat and be eaten. True of everyone. It's not eat or, it's eat and. And it's just like, is it your time or not? But it's a supportive, collaborative structure in ways that the system at large recognizes, which is a sentient being, God, the universe. Even if you don't, and you're just like, it's a dog-eat-dog world out there, and like we have to kill the mountain lions before they kill us, or whatever, I don't know. Like, that's not reality. There is a supportive structure. And there are certain instances where you do have to like defend yourself, but that's not the nature of the system. The system as a system must be cooperative at large. If it's not, and mutually beneficial and supportive, mutually supportive, if it's not a system. It will just collapse. It's not this idea that, Darwinian evolution is just this like brutal, like horrible, process that, has no mercy. And the reality is, like, if you watch some ways in which, beings meet their end in the change space, at least, that definitely looks like it's the case, but it's not really the case, because you're not taking into account after the change space, and after the change space is essential to this entire process. Like, you have to store information. And I was going to talk about learning tonight originally, but one of the things is I was going to discuss how you basically this process of like, experiencing experiences, deducing that into digestible information that's basically able to be made sense of, and then storing it and then referencing it later. And that is definitely like true of the universe too. It's not like detached from that process, but like you have to rely on sentient beings in order to be supported and also be insulated from chaos. Like, you can't do it other than only sentient singularities insulate sentient singularities from chaos, because the structure that gives rise to sentience is by definition the objective order. And order is the opposite of chaos. So go towards sentience if you want to avoid chaos. And there's no other way to do it. You can't make enough money to insulate yourself from chaos. You cannot do it. You think you can, you cannot. Trust me, you cannot. Things will happen in your life that are just, you could have never predicted, and money will not do anything to help you. Money can help sometimes buy people and goods, which is labor. It's finished labor, or by like kinetic labor. So there's like kinetic labor, which is when you're buying labor, and then there's static labor, which is when you're buying goods, essentially. And it can help pay for those things. But the thing is this: if the system gets chaotic enough, anyone that you need to pay in order for them to help support you is not a support system when chaos occurs, because they're going to be gone. They're going to be worrying about their own self and their own sentient beings that they care about and the sentient beings that sustain them. They're not going to be worried about you and your money. Like, it's not actually insulating. at all. It's enabling, but not insulating. And I guess like the final thing that I want to say before I go into the comments and kind of like branch away from this topic, that I do admit, and I realize it was a little bit like from different angles, but it has to be, that's what happens when you're discussing broad topics. Or I guess like highly relevant throughout multiple aspects of life. But if you want to insulate yourself from chaos, don't watch the news. Don't do it. I do not watch the news at all anymore. I learn nothing about disease from the news. I learn nothing. I learn about it from the people around me and my immediate, social environment. Basically, with what's it look like around me as far as, viruses and illnesses and things like that. I look to people around me for data points about, whether or not something is safe. If they've already done it, I will look to them, not the news. If I want to learn about, what's going on in the world of firearms, I do not turn to CNN or Fox or Breitbart or even the Daily Wire. If I want to learn about, animals and reptiles and what's going on in that world, I turn to people. I don't turn to companies. I turn to communities. And I've said this before, it's like news travels in niches, like real news travels in niches. You don't need to care about what's happening right now in Afghanistan. Okay? Like, that might be a very controversial statement, but you don't. You don't know if it's even real. You don't know. You don't know anything. You're not there. You haven't ever been there, probably. I've never been there. And I do care about people, and I want people there to thrive, and I want people here to thrive, and, that's what I want. But I don't. What's the point of investing energy in something I will never be able to impact? And you can't. You can't impact it. You have to impact our nation by first impacting yourself and building families, and then families move to castes, and castes move to nations. And that's the only way to do it. You have to do it from the bottom up. You can't do it from the top down. You can try, but look at what happened with Trump. I voted for the guy. He was a different, input than we have had in my lifetime. But he was eliminated, banned. Everything that he did was like reversed, and whatever he wasn't reversed is, going to be reversed. So much as is even, relevant. You can't fix a broken community from the top down. You have to fix it from the bottom up. And you really can't even fix it, I don't think. And if it's a large enough community, you have to just build a new one. If it's not an actual community, you have to just build a new one. If it's fractured to the point where it's not one community, it has to still be a united group. Otherwise, in order to fix it, if it's so divided, guys, we're never fixing the United States. It's going to be the divided states of America, very soon. It already is in spirit, and it will be in actuality in the next 10 years. There's no way this country goes on. And it's not supposed to either. That's okay. It's, I said this to somebody and once on Discord, and they said to me, well, Tyler, you say this you need to get out of the cities and the country is beyond fixing, but you live in Los Angeles. And I was like, first of all, I live in a relatively calm part of Los Angeles, thank God, and sleep with a rifle next to my bed and stock up on water, and am planning to move to a place where I can have chickens in the backyard, and I'm putting my foot in the sand and saying I will not live somewhere where the homeowners association is telling me I can't have chickens in the backyard. You have to give up the little perks. friend of mine was like justifying them working from the office, and they were telling me, well, they have a bar here. They have like an open bar at the office, and like putt golf or something like that. And I was like, that's cool. Like, I used to be like, I recognize that when you're in that situation, you look to the positives, and that's a good thing. But are those really even positives? Like, I don't know. How do those add to your life? Like, when I first moved out here, there was like this rec room at the, and it was just like, it had like board games and books and DVDs and a TV and like ping pong and foosball and stuff like that in this room. And like, that's nice to have. We had like competitions of foosball and stuff like that and ping pong. It was a good time, but like, it leads to this weird place where you're just kind of like, should I be playing ping pong with my coworker, or should I be, like working, and like, who's watching me right now and judging me, and like, oh, now I'm judging myself, and like, it's there to, be a good time sometimes, I'm sure, but it's also like will inevitably be used to not be a positive. So, I mean, I don't need to relax. I don't want to relax at work. I want to work at work and then relax not at work. Like, I don't need to relax at work. When Google created, here's our slide, and here's our, our pods, and here's our, full cafeteria and probably a bar and all kinds of other things. I don't know, dance club, any Zumba. It's like, you have Zumba at work? If you have a Zumba at work and yoga, they are enslaving you. Okay? They want you to abandon your family or any potential family that you may possibly have in the future. That's what they want. If they have that in the office, that is what they want. And, I remember being like, Google's so awesome. They have like, yoga classes in the middle of the day. It's like, they want you to not have a family and never have a family and work for the beast until you're dead. And like, that's not a good thing. So a lot of these things that we think are good are not. But you don't look to those systems to insulate you. They won't. When chaos strikes, the only bonds that are, maintained through chaos, throughout chaos, is, loving bonds, which is one sentient being to another. And that includes even just like watering the fruit trees that you're going to eat. That is loving the fruit trees. If you give them water, that is love. Like, you are acting in a manner that is good for them. Even if you go and you dig up vegetables and you eat them, it's like, would it have been better if you just didn't, and then the rabbits got them instead, or they just rotted away? Like, they're meant to be eaten. Like, it's not like it's a very mutual relationship. I mean, think about if you couldn't eat carrots, would we grow any carrots next year? Nope. They would go extinct because nobody would need them. So even if us eating them doesn't directly lead to, okay, yeah, you're pooping out the seeds and it's growing back like some bird eating some fruit in the rainforest or something, like, you're still, like, carrots exist and are grown and bred essentially. I'm gonna sneeze. Oh man, I feel it, man. I never like let myself sneeze. I don't know if that's good, but like, I don't know. But at least that's over with. But we only have carrots because we eat them. Like, it is a mutual relationship. It's not one-sided like everybody thinks. And you have to kind of look at like the results of things sometimes, not just like what is happening in the immediacy. But yeah, rely on sentient beings, be supported by sentient beings, support sentient beings, get, married or form a, or get close to your family unit, your nuclear family, live around other nuclear families. I almost picked up a rifle. Have arms, and no skills, and definitely do not watch the news, and don't let non-sentient beings, which are not beings at all, non-sentient structures, non-sentient constructors, dictate what is valuable to you, like the news, like your job, your company. It should not dictate what is valuable in your life. It's like people are literally giving their children away the majority of their waking hours to be raised by somebody they don't even know, just because they're going into the office. And we needed to do that for a time, but that time has come and gone for many people in the world, and an increasing number of people. So, yeah, definitely don't watch the news, and you don't need to care about what's happening on the other side of the world. You just don't. Like, if you don't understand it, don't be manipulated by a non-sentient construction that is constructing narratives that you have no idea where they're coming from. And I mean, like, the news is a fake thing, and it's not that, oh, this is fake news and that's real news. There's no such thing as real news that's general news. It doesn't exist. They're picking and choosing what to show you about what's important. Did your life get impacted today because, there's chaos in the Middle East? Not unless you live in the Middle East, or you're going to live somewhere where there's, like, political ramifications of what's happening there via, like, refugees and, I don't know, all kinds of other things. Then it matters. But if it doesn't, if it's not going to impact you in a way that you can understand, don't give it energy. Like, there's so many other things that you can focus on. You're literally letting chaos take you away from peace. It's not even that chaos has arrived at your door. You walked to chaos when you watch the news. It's different than when, there's riot going down your street corner. That's chaos has, walked up to you. But if you watch the news, you went right up to chaos. And you, like, open the door for chaos and let chaos and everything. I literally do not watch the news anymore, guys, at all. It's amazing how little I watch the news. I just turn to communities, and that's it. I didn't even do that intentionally until pretty recently, and I just, like, unfollowed all news on my, or as many as I could find on my Twitter. It's like, done with this. It's not helpful to my life at all. Why do I need to listen to Ben Shapiro tell me about the news every single day? I don't. I like Ben Shapiro well enough. Like, I've worked with him before. I wouldn't mind having him as my neighbor, but I don't need him to make me worried about, who's allowed in the public bathrooms of Disneyland. Like, think about the craziness of that. I understand that there's, like, illogical, like, things happening that involve that, and you're just, like, sometimes you look at things like that and you're just, like, dumbfounded. I get it. Don't focus on it, though. I'm seeing this a lot on the right, is, like, just reactionary, and they're not insulating themselves from the chaos. There are some red elephants, like the black pill or black pilled, like those two streams of content. Not good at all. It's literally making you crazy. I'm not saying that those things aren't really happening, but are you going to drag queen story time? Or are you taking your kids? If not, why are you so angry? Like, because you're letting them bring chaos into your home. Like, it's what CNN is doing it too. I mean, it's not just CNN. It's also going to be like Red Elephants and Fox and Breitbart and Blackpilled and PragerU right now. Yeah, that was like me being critical of a structure that I used to work for, but it's not the same structure that I worked for. When I started there, I was working for people, and it just grew beyond being people, and it's now something else. But I'm telling you, like, I would love to see. I was really hoping that they would continue just like being what they originally were, and they're definitely not. It's a shame. But what's great is the content that they created that was so good is still there. You know, like all those things that are helpful to your life, like the 10 Commandments series by Dennis Prager, which is probably the best piece of content on the internet. I pray to God that one day, and I mean this seriously, that I make a piece of content that is half as valuable as that. And that's not going anywhere, but like I don't see anything from anyone that is like, this is, other than there are certain people, Owen Benjamin, and that the Bears, like that whole group, that's his like group, super impressive. They have like their own community, their own social media. It's the calmest social media, the kindest social media you've ever seen in your life. There's no politics on it at all. It's like, this is my garden. This is my dog. This is my new baby. We just got married. If I ever want to not have any anxiety, I go on the Bertaria app, which is their social media. Highly recommend it if you want something better. Their dating app, I don't use it, but like, I know that the goal is like a spouse. And judging by their community at large, I would imagine it's a much nicer dating experience than Tinder. And I met my wife on Tinder, so like I can't even bash Tinder too bad. But you have to form communities. Like this is a community that is like, you go into that app and it's the community, and it's like, this is so calm and so constructive, and people are trading recipes, and they're, parenting advice, and there's no politics at all. No one's posting memes. No one is ranting about Joe Biden or Donald Trump or, lockdowns or anything like that. It's just calm. And it's because focusing on that stuff is a choice. There are some things you need to know. What's going on with you locally? That does matter. But you don't need any news source that you follow almost to tell you what's going on locally. You don't. Like, if there's something that you engage with, if you carry a knife, go to the knife community and figure out, they will tell you all the laws in your area. Go to the knife people. You want to carry a firearm, go to the firearm people and online, and the ones in your area will tell you all the rules. You want to raise chickens, go to the chicken people online, find the ones in your area, and they will help you. Like, you don't need any news. None of it. None. I've learned nothing about anything from any of it. And I used to listen to Ben Shapiro every single day, and I had CNN and Breitbart and Fox and the Daily Wire, and I had every MSNBC, CBS. I had it all. Al Jazeera, like, I had everything, and I unfollowed it all. My life is so much better. I don't know how I would do anything that I do. There are things going on in my life that like are, some of them I speak about, some of them I haven't yet, but I will. And like, they're not bad. They're just like, waiting for the moment. And like, I don't know how you would possibly focus on things that are actually relevant and happening in my life if I was focusing on the news. People are like, did you hear what's happening in Canada? With them, like, they're digging up children that are like remains that are 100 years old. And today somebody told me this, and I was like, no, I had no idea. And like, that's sad, but it's like, you know how many dead bodies there are everywhere? Like, buried in the ground? A lot. I'm not saying that it didn't matter what happened, but you have a bandwidth, and you have to be like intentional about where you put that bandwidth. It should be towards things that are relevant to your life and are supportive of your life, people who are supportive of your life, communities that are supportive of your life, not beast systems that have no feelings. That's how you know, by the way, whether or not you're focusing on something that's good or not. Are you focusing on something that has feelings? If you are putting your energy towards, and I'm not just talking about your job because you got to do your job, but the point of that is because, you know, it helps sustain your family and you and, you know, sentient beings. But outside of that, nothing. Nothing. Like everything is communities, family, individuals. You know, growing your own food. I can't wait to grow my own food. I will have goats. I will have chickens. I will grow vegetables. I think that's probably all I'm going to have for now. I don't see myself getting any cows. I definitely won't have any pigs. Won't have any rabbits. But goats, chickens. You can do a lot with goats and chickens. Cheese, meat, you know, eggs, all kinds of stuff. Johnny Bravo, really interesting so far. What's this Instagram you speak of? What Instagram? This was probably way long ago, Torin. Sorry. Really impressed, Tyler. Well, I appreciate it. I mean, I hope that that's useful to you, Johnny. I've never seen you here, but welcome. You give us hope. I shouldn't give you hope, but I should. If I'm an example now in this moment, then that's good. But then in the future, you can be an example for someone else, maybe even me. You know, like we have to, especially men, we have to be examples of each other. It's not enough to be like, I realized this. I was like, I can't just tell people to get married. I have to do it. And I have to show people that I did it. You can't just do it either in private and then be like, I got married. Now you get married. It's like, this is not how men work. We have to see someone go do something, and then we're like, oh, that's how that happens, you know? It's important. Blessed be the insulated. May the distance between the dimensions optimize your resonance. I like that a lot. Resistance. I have a recipe for Lawrence Yang Mills pie. Awesome. I want to hear about that. Send me a message on Instagram, and I'll give you a link to the Discord, and you can join our Discord discussion tomorrow and share it. You want. Flat planes of sauce and cheese tangent bundled into my mouth. That's very funny. Do the noodles come from within other noodles, a la string cheese theory? That's very funny too. It's like a whole meal is being constructed in this fiber bundle. Perhaps only Tyler can tell. Probably not, but maybe. I don't know. But noodles do come from within other noodles, I can tell you that. But I don't think I'm the only one. Fish and berry farming. That sounds great. I've thought about like tilapia. Like, what if you have tilapia? That would be... But I've heard also that it's like dirty. I don't know much about it, so like I'm not going to claim anything. But I will say that I would love to have like a pond that had fish. And I know that you can raise tilapia basically eating crap. Like, it's what they do with the zoos. They keep tilapia in with like hippopotamuses because the hippos crap and the fish eat that. And, you know, you got to become like a little ecosystem, but there is no way to do that in any of our current, you know, institutional structures. They don't care about you. The schools don't care about you. The companies don't care about you. The politicians don't care about you. Like, none of them do. And the military doesn't care about you. The cops don't care about you. Like, chaos happens. And you have to be surrounded by people that care about you. And you have to, you know, be supported by things that you care about. And that honestly care about you. I mean, You can say your fruit tree doesn't care about you, but like it's giving you fruit. You know? Like maybe it does. There's no real way for you to know other than to realize that it's like looks like a mutually beneficial relationship. And do you need to know anything more than that? Like if love is an action and not a feeling, all you need to know is it's a mutually beneficial relationship between two sentient beings, two or more sentient beings. That you have this fruit tree and it grows fruit for you and you can eat them, and then you give it water and, healthy soil. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. It is loving relationship. It is a loving relationship. That is what love is. Love is not a feeling. You can feel loved when someone is doing loving actions for you or to you. They're giving you food because you are hungry. That's a loving action, and then you feel loved. That happens. But love is not a feeling that you feel for others. That's like infatuation, or that's like liking someone in the moment, and it's not a feeling. Like love is not a real thing. Like don't focus on that as a feeling. It's why probably there's so many divorces. The idea that's like, well, why did we get divorced? Because we're no longer in love. You're telling me that in a relationship that's supposed to be monogamous and where you share space with the person always for 70 plus years, you're telling me that you didn't like them for an extended period of time of that. It might be a small percentage of the time when you take it into account of the total, but it's still, 3 years of 70 is not long, but it feels like it in the moment. It's like, what if you didn't like your spouse for 3 years? Is that like reason for divorce? No. That's called like bringing chaos into your home. That's not insulating chaos. And trust me, if you do nice things for, one of the things that I've just noticed is like, if Paulina and I are having like disagreements, or not disagreements, but like stress, there are certain things that stress everyone out. And, my dog stresses out my spouse. That's a fact. And whenever my dog stresses out my spouse, or I stress out my spouse, I go and I just start doing nice things for them. I will go and I will get them dinner and make them dinner, or I will vacuum, or I will take the dog out of, the living room and bring her in here with me, or all kinds of things. I'll go make the bed. Anything that I can do to just be kind. It's really, really hard to not like your spouse for an extended period of time if that is the strategy for overcoming, moments where you genuinely dislike each other. Like I'm being serious. There are moments where I'm like, I don't really like who you are right now. And it's not often. I mean, Paulina and I have a really good relationship, but and it's a very stable one, which is good. But there's always moments, and we don't even have kids yet, and it's like there's gonna be all kinds of things that you have to overcome, but you have to find a strategy of how to handle that. And we have this like double down strategy in society where everybody is like competing to be the victim, which really means you have to not treat anyone else like the victim whenever someone is upset with you. We like feign victimhood, or we focus on our own victim mentality, and all the ways in which we're a victim. So like, please don't be mean to me. It's literally like when you're yelling at your dog and it just rolls over on its back. It's like, I'm vulnerable. Please leave me alone. But that's what people do. And when they're playing victim. But if you don't do that, you don't double down on that strategy that leads to chaos and divorce, And you do the opposite thing where you are like, you know what, I really don't like you right now, but I'm going to go vacuum for you because I know that if I vacuum for you and I, go and get, when I go back out to fill up, my car with gas, I get you a Hershey's bar or something like that. Like, I'm going to like you a lot more after that. And if you focus on that, it's really, really, really hard to stay very angry with each other. I've noticed. This has been my strategy. I'm sharing with you my secrets. And I mean, I'm not spilling any real secrets. Paulina knows my secrets. The other way, and this is specific to men, whereas the other last one wasn't, I eventually want to have Owen on to talk about comedy and its purpose and its aspects and how it, follows the universal patterns and things like that. I need to give more thought on I need to think more about comedy before I do that, though, just because I want a starting place, more of a starting place. But eventually it will happen. And there is this like narrative of like men are just, men are funnier than women. And people say it as if it's like a competition. It's like, well, we all know at least like men are way funnier than women. And women get pissed, and they should get pissed. You're saying it like it's a competition. You're like, oh, guess what? We're better than you. It's like, in that way, yes, but women are way better at other things. But that's the point is to recognize the reasons for that and be like, oh, I'm not funny for my own sake. Try making yourself like laugh out loud at yourself. Like, it doesn't happen very often. You are funny for the sake of others, and men are funny for the sake of women. It's not for our own sake so we can laugh at how funny we are. Like, people do that, but that's not the point of it. Men are funny because when women are annoyed with us, we can make them laugh and help them deal with it. And this is my second strategy if like the first one fails. If vacuuming doesn't work, just start doing something ridiculous and funny. It will work. It's really hard to stay mad, but that only works for men. Like, if you do that as a woman, I don't know how well that would go down. It might work, but it might not. So, okay. I have said that I am keeping these streams to 2 hours, so at 8:35 I'm getting off here. So ask any questions that might be on your mind. But I discussed this yesterday, and I'm sticking to it. I'm going to try and really keep these under 2 hours or less, and start at 6:30 every day instead of 7:30. We'll take it from there and see how well that goes. But it's way more sustainable for me, and it's because I can get things done afterwards, and it's also, more importantly too, way more sustainable for people who want to tune in. It just was too much, guys. I was streaming like over 3 hours, like 2 or 3 times a week, and I was starting at like 7:40, 7:30 Pacific time. I also wanted to say we are still having Discord discussions tomorrow, which is normally at 7, but we are pushing it back to probably closer to 7:30. I will announce tomorrow on my Instagram what time it will be and in the Discord. If you want to join our Discord, we have an open live call, and we have a great community in there. People talk about all kinds of things. There's like hobby channels and like family channels and, political channels and theology channels and physics channels and all kinds of stuff. And it's a good group. But every Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific time, we have a live call where anyone who wants to talk, just join it. It's just a conference call. There's no like taking like first your question, then your question. It's just an open discussion with me and everyone else who wants to join. And it goes on well into the night, but it starts usually at 7, and it's going to start tomorrow at least 7:30 because I am going on a podcast. And it is, I will show you the podcast. This is the podcast I'm going on. Slow internet. We're going to get some bigger names like in this world that I am in, I guess, very soon, of just like physics and morals and stuff. But I'm going to get faster internet first because I think it's very necessary. But this is eventually we will have Jim Bob on. We will also have Owen on, and probably will eventually go on their stuff at some point. But we'll definitely have them both on here. But Jim Bob went on Pat Life. So this is the podcast that I'm going to be going on. It's called Pat Life, and it basically, here's the like what it likes to get into is like, fascinating deep topics, human potential, and that's gravy means like fascinating deep topics, and resilience, wellness, and even like some metaphysics stuff, it seems. So I have looked into the podcast. I listened to some, and it definitely, one of them was on physics, and it definitely seemed like a good, like, just a good stream. It was a great stream. But I don't know, like, that much of the content, and I'm still, like, browsing. But I mean, I've already committed, and I'm happy, and I trust this person to go on their podcast. So it's definitely happening, but it's happening tomorrow at 5:30. I'm going on. I don't know if it's going to be live or not. I can't tell you. That is something I'm not aware of, but we'll see. I didn't actually like ask any of that information yet, but Patrick is seems like a good guy, and I'm sure we'll have good conversations. Definitely some overlapping interests. Great stream. Aliens and numerology. Aliens and numerology. Exactly. Well, let me tell you, we will get deep into both of those things. And I don't believe in whatever you think numerology is. I probably don't agree with that. But I do know that numbers have meaning beyond a quantitative value. And but you have to contextualize them in the logos structures of the cosmos, and like see where those quantities pop up, and it will become obvious exactly what they represent. And we're going to talk about it. I've touched on it before. I don't know Barricade Garage. I can look into that. I have spoken to Anomaly. Anomaly is, I'd say Anomaly is a friend of mine. And I do talk to him every now and then. We did talk about him coming on here, and I would do that. I'm sure he would. He's super busy. That's the thing, is like, I want to have Owen on. I want to have Anomaly on. I want to have Jim Bob on, and Robert Grant, and lots of people. But the thing is like, everybody's so busy with their own stuff, which is great. Those are the type of people I want to have on, not people who are just like waiting for a podcast. Like, I get it. Like, I stream every night here, when I'm not, I'm working on other things. Like, but eventually you make it work. But everybody in this group is like very busy, including me. And like I've always been like very focused on my own stuff with this, and it's not like if the goal was to get tons of followers. By the way, if you have not followed the channel, please hit the like button, comment, hit the bell notification, follow. We are so close to 400 followers, and I could have had, I mean, probably tens of thousands of followers over the past like year and a half, 2 years since I started this channel. And it's just not the goal, and that's good. But it would be nice to, get this to more people who it would resonate with. But I'm not changing up the content to be, catering towards just growth of followers. It's not what I want. I want a community. Like, that's what I want. I built the Discord. I want to talk to you guys every day. I want to be like vulnerable and honest and real, candid. That's how you grow a community. You don't grow a community that's a real community when you just put out polished videos. It's like, I really like, I don't know. I'm trying to like think of an example. But, there's like so many different content streams out there where nothing is live and it's just this once a week release, and it's usually pretty good quality, and you watch it. It's like, I don't know. Even maybe like Garantham. He's got so many people that follow him. And there is like a community that's been built up around him, but it's not nearly the size compared to his followers, which is like millions. It's like multiple millions of followers on YouTube. He's a gun reviewer. He does not have a community of even hundreds of thousands. It's not even close to that, even though he has multiple millions of followers. His community that knows each other and jokes and talks and like that exists, but it's small. And like, that's good. That's fine, But the rest of those followers are good for him, and it could be good for the other people if in some ways. I mean, if there's a gun that he reviews that you are thinking about getting, but otherwise it's like, I love his content. So I like his content. I don't want to say I love his content. I like his content. So I'm not like bashing on him, but my goal is community, not like to have a community emerge, but to engage with the community and let the views emerge, and they will, but it depends on what you focus on. Like, there's vanity metrics, and there's like real metrics. This is like one of the things that a lot of political newsy things, like, I don't know, like, I'm not criticizing PragerU like specifically, but it's a good example. Like PragerU, like, it's important for them, and this isn't even critical. I'm not even going to make a critical statement. I'm just going to say it's important for content to focus on the goal, not like the vanity metrics. And that's something that everything wrestles with. And as soon as you're I don't know, as soon as the company gets so big that it loses coherence of mind, it will focus on vanity metrics alone, which is like making the most amount of money, having the most, users on a platform, having the most followers, getting the most views. Like, these things are vanity metrics. They're not intrinsically valuable. They can lead to, they can help spread value, but they are not valuable intrinsically. So that's not what I couldn't do that. I've told you guys before, when I was first making videos, and I started off and I was like, these highly produced, I mean, granted, I didn't even have a good mic, but for not having a good mic and never making videos that complex, they're pretty highly produced videos. The very first like few or so on this channel, they're great videos, and I loved them after, like, I was very, I don't want to say I was very happy about what I had created after I had created it. But the process sucked because I wasn't just on here talking to people who I can respond to in the chat. Like, you are fueled and supported by sentient beings, not vanity metrics. Like, meaning comes from sentient beings, not vanity metrics. It's like, how meaningful are you? Well, we have 69 million views. It's like, okay, well, what did that do? I don't know. Like, I have no idea. You gotta figure it out. But we will talk about aliens. I do believe that those things are, whatever they are real. And the phenomenon is real. I don't know if they're actually aliens from another planet. I'm leaning towards they aren't. I'm leaning towards they're from here. And but I've said that before. We're going to talk deeply about it very soon. I don't know how soon. There's like the topic gets into stuff that I have to be ready to talk about. That's all I'll say about that. Do you think you can beat Anomaly at basketball? I can definitely not beat Anomaly at basketball. No way in hell. I suck at basketball. I can shoot and play like horse and stuff, but I cannot play basketball. I'm horrible at team sports. I'm horrible at team sports that are like that are, football, basketball. I'm good at like soccer, playing defense. That's it. Nothing else am I good at as far as like team sports. I'm good at not team sports like swimming. I'm not tall enough to be super fast, but if I was taller, I would be. Tennis. I'm really good at martial arts. Like that's my main thing. I'm good at rock climbing. I'm good at martial arts. Good at shooting, which is martial arts. I was good at tennis as a kid. I haven't played in years. Anything that's like an individual sport, I was better at than a team sport. But I do like working in teams in like tasks though that are not like sports. And that's probably, I've said before, like I'm a terrible dancer, but I'm a good martial artist and they're the same moves. And so why do I have rhythm with one and not the other? And it just highlights how perspective is, it's so defining. Like, it's so much more important than IQ or anything like that. Like I don't want to debate anybody, but like I would trust myself holding my own against anyone with any IQ, no matter how much higher it is than mine, any day at this point. But, that doesn't mean I can learn things as fast as them, but I can keep up with things that I know about already. And perspective is much more important to understanding than IQ or something like that. But that's probably also true of like being a good teammate in basketball versus being a good coworker, because the focus is different. The focus in dance is I want to look good. It's also why I'm not great at music. I want to sound good. I don't want to express emotions. I don't want to just enjoy myself dancing. I want to look good. Like that's where my mind goes. And, people who are like that with martial arts, who like watch anime and stuff, and they come into like martial arts classes and they're like, oh man, I'm going to do jiu-jitsu. They look like how I look dancing, because to them, it's about looking good. And, they're probably good dancers, but that's for me with team sports. I like focus so much on being a good teammate that I'm not a good teammate. And but in the work environment, I focus on getting the stuff done. And that makes me a good teammate. That's the same thing with martial arts. I focus on winning, and therefore I have rhythm, and, it actually looks good too. I like some people when they do martial arts, you can just tell like they have like it just looks good. They have rhythm to it, and like it's just natural. And I'm like that, and it's because I'm not focused on how I look. But if you focus on how you look terrible. It's the same. It's like when people go straight Asperger's or like autistic leaning. I'm someone who's guilty of that sometimes. It's when I'm like focusing on how I'm being perceived, I end up being perceived as like just like lacking in awareness. But I'm not lacking in awareness. I just like I'm too aware and I can't function. Focus is your perspective, and it dictates so much. But if we have anomaly, if we do anything with anomaly, it won't be playing basketball. It will be talking about probably the news and like the lack of the importance of the news. That's kind of his thing, is like focusing on the news. I would talk to him about why the news is terrible. I bet they're ancient Egyptians or some obscure mountain dwelling folks. Yeah, I think that they're like Atlanteans, basically. I think they're like the pre-flood civilization, like the holdouts from it. And their genes are just effed up. And they're just like using us for DNA because they CRISPR'd themselves to into like almost oblivion. And, I think I think they're human. And I bet you our government knows, by the way. Like, if you have bodies of these beings, and I am convinced they have bodies, watch this interview with the interview with Brian Keating and Tom DeLonge and Kerchai Mungle and that guy who was the CIA, spy spook, like, who says, why would I be a disinformation agent? I don't think he actually necessarily is, but he didn't answer that question well. He was like, somebody goes, they asked this guy who's in the CIA who works for Tom DeLonge's To the Stars Academy, and then I will go in a minute, but it's just funny. And they asked the guy, they were like, you've been accused of being a disinformation agent. What do you have to say about that? And he was like, well, like, that's just ridiculous. Like, first of all, that would be an operation against the American people, and that's illegal. And I just started laughing hysterically. I was like, not a good argument. You look very guilty right now, first of all. Second of all, since when has legality stopped the CIA from doing anything? Never. Never that I know of. So definitely not when it comes to like their most secret, the most secret subject that there is the UFO subject. There's no subject more secretive to our military-industrial complex than that subject. None. And anything else that may be, more secretive is surrounded by that, and it's related to that. But that guy was asked, is the government in possession of alien bodies? And like I said, I don't think they're aliens, but you get it. And the guy was like, I'm not going to comment on it. I don't think he said that to grandstand. I think he said that because they have bodies, and he's legally forbidden from saying that they do. And he's legally forbidden from saying that they don't. He just can't say anything. I mean, there are some instances where you are legally required to lie in some of these black programs, not just like deny, to decline to answer. You have to lie, from what I've heard. It's a wild world, but we're definitely going to talk about that subject way deeper than we have. And I will get into like just more just personal aspects of that subject, but not today. Anyways, peace, guys. Like I said, please hit the like button, follow, share this with anyone who you think would find it meaningful. And insulate yourself with sentient beings, support yourself with sentient beings. If a structure isn't going to care about you, you can't rely on it during chaos. And you free yourself from some chaos when you constrain yourself to responsibility. So that's the main overall. Parallel civilization theory. Yeah. Or like, what's it called? Like Richard Dolan calls it breakaway civilization. But it's not, I mean, I think you mean something different, but it's similar-ish. Anyways, peace, guys, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow in the Discord, and send me messages on Instagram if you want the link. I'm not posting it into the YouTube chats anymore. We get people that are not ready to join our Discord. You know, sometimes you gotta like let the process filter out the people who are not as committed to just questioning.